And for those of you who are new here today, my name is Suzanne Murphy. I am a Biopulsar analyst, and I consider myself a world expert on the topic of colors, chakras, and the human aura in conjunction with our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. So today's purpose is to go through the various ways that we can do biofeedback. And for me, this is really exciting because it gives you the opportunity to see how we have so much control over our wellness. Now, like everyone else, my energy is normal. So you're going to be seeing my energy as it is today. And I'm going to be talking about where I've been working. And I actually did some biofeedback exercises beforehand to prepare me for today, because otherwise it would just take too long if I'm doing everything from scratch. And I have fast forwarded it a little to, again, give it in a nutshell to make it super easy. So in the PDF file that I'll be sending you, it's going into different steps. So step one is after you have placed the client's hand on the hand plate, and what we're doing is we're putting the hand down in the correct position, making sure one hand is on top of the other, getting that strong connection, making sure that there's no interference whatsoever, because there will be different things that will interfere with a reading, such as dryness of the hand, sweatiness of the hand, deformities in the hand, and there is a natural ebb and flow in our hand, and that is reflected with the hand plate. Some sensors are higher and some are lower. But the bottom line is, once we get a strong reading, we then freeze the data. So we go to the icon that is on our Biopulsar. And because this is a slideshow, and I'm just going to maximize this so you can see it a little bit better. But on the Biopulsar program, we simply have a clock. That clock illustrates whether we're starting a reading or stopping a reading. So once we have our proper scan, we simply hit the stop button or the clock button. It's called technically the free sensor data. The next thing that we do is we input the client's information, and that's illustrated by the blue head. And just so you know, I call it the blue Alfred Hitchcock head because it reminds me of when we used to watch Alfred Hitchcock movies, and we would see the side view of Alfred Hitchcock as a shadow. Now, when we input the data, what we want to do is we want to create it so it's a little bit hidden. And so when you purchase the Biopulsar, of course, all these things are explained in your technical manual, as well as the additional information that I give from my perspective. But what you're going to do is you're going to create the file name. The third step is saving the scan. And it's very, very easy because with the shortcut buttons, all the icons illustrate very simply what the different steps are, or the different icons are. So in this case, we just hit the diskette button, and it's going to pop open a window and ask you to save the recording. Again, we're going to save the recording as the file name to make it very easy, very generic, and easy to find. Because when I first started out, sometimes I would forget people's names. Now what I do is I associate everything with their last name and the date. So I have two ways of looking it up, either by date or by name. So again, we illustrate that as, by, what I do is I take the first four letters of the person's last name followed by their first initial of their first name. So this way, if you're doing a family, hopefully everybody has a different first name. If not, then you can always add another letter to the coding, and then followed by 6 numbers, which would reflect the date. And I do it month, day, year. So today, for example, would be 01/21/21. Now, when I'm doing biofeedback, I always assign my biofeedback exercise to a different digit. So for example, my baseline reading would be -1. And today what I did is I did 2 baseline readings because, again, if you're doing more detailed research, you want to do 2 baseline readings so that way you have an average of your energy that day. And I want to just quickly address that. In my initial studies, I learned that women are a little bit more emotional with their energy. And so their energy would sometimes jump even within minutes, within about a 10 point spread. But with men, it was more in a 5-point spread, indicating they run a little bit stronger with masculine energy, where women operate with feminine energy. So as you can imagine, there might be more variables. So what I'm saying is, if in doubt, take 2 baseline readings before you start your research. This way you can create a stronger average of what the energy is, and then everything you do afterwards would be a comparison to the average of the first 2 scans. Now, if you're doing 1 baseline, then everything that you're comparing would be comparable to that first baseline reading. And from there, once we have actually saved the scan, then what we want to do is we want to print it out. Now, nowadays, I create a lot of PDF files, so I'm not always necessarily printing, but if you're doing any kind of study, it's nice to print your pictures and it's nice to print the data. So this way, when you're printing the pictures, you have the pictures in front of you as to what the variables are. And I'm going to show you a couple different things. As long as we have enough time to cover everything today, I'll show you a couple things that I do if I'm not printing out the pictures or the data, how I'm comparing it on the screen. But nonetheless, you have that capability of printing out the pictures so you can do the comparisons. And what's nice about the picture, when we talk about a picture being worth 1,000 words, it's instant for you to see if there's yellow and all of a sudden you're doing some sort of biofeedback and the yellow turns into a beautiful green, because greens and turquoises right away are illustrating the state of balance and harmony. So that color perspective instantly is showing you when there's more balance. And when I was doing my biofeedback, I actually saw that certain exercises that I did created more green in my aura, which is of course what we want. That's the end result. So again, we can look at that picture and instantly see that. Otherwise, on the linear perspective, we're relying on the 3-digit numerical value of every organ and gland that we're receiving to compare the results from. And again, we're going to go into comparing a complete scan so you can sort of see through my eyes what I look at. And also, when we can look at the biofeedback of the graphs, that also gives us information as to what we're seeing. So we're going to be analyzing all of that. Now, when we're printing, there is a feature which I love, especially when you're new to the Biopulsar. It's called preview, and it actually shows you a preview of what you're printing beforehand. And that is invaluable because it prevents mistakes down the road. Now, once you become proficient with the system, like for me, I know all the buttons, I know all the shortcuts. So I don't need to do the print preview because right away I'm ensuring that I'm on the right window and I'm printing because it's second nature to me. But when you're first starting out, don't worry, do the print preview, and then that way it's the shortcut. Now, I did send you an overview from the Blue Technical Manual on page 18 to refer to. So these are the icons that I'm looking at or I'm showing you on screen as the most important, especially when you're first starting out. And you're at an advantage because this user booklet goes through every single feature. So I challenge you to make sure that you go through your booklet a few times, and even not on the same day, because if you want to memorize things, then it has to become second nature. And when you're first studying it, it's not second nature at that point. You're still grasping at, what do I do next? What are the steps? Oh my goodness, I missed a step. There sometimes can be a little bit of, excitement when you're first starting out. But once you have the main buttons memorized, then it makes it much easier for you to go through the different steps. So what we're doing here is a fast track of the most important things that you're going to do every single time. I record every reading and I do everything in the same format. Other than I've put this as 4A, because obviously until you become proficient, then 4B is what you'll be jumping to and you'll skip 4A. But 4A is the print preview. And so therefore you would hit icon number 18 and it would actually show you a display of what you're going to print before you actually print. Once you've got that down pat, then automatically you're just going to go right to the print button. And that is illustrated by icon number 17. It's exactly the same as the print preview, except the print preview shows you that one additional step of what you're printing. And again, as we go through things, I'm going to go through that a little bit slower, so that way you'll catch everything that I'm saying. And then the final thing is exporting the data. Now you have two options. One, you can export it into an Excel spreadsheet. And again, I'm going to show you this. Or I've also created my organ vitality data chart. So this way you can write the numbers down. There is no difference other than one is a handwritten copy versus the other one is done on a spreadsheet. And I show you both ways because, again, depending on how computer literate you are, you may like to work in an Excel spreadsheet format, or you may just want to write down the numbers. The bottom line is you're going to be studying the data. That is the most important. But again, I'm going to show you all the ways that I work with the system, because there's different applications. Sometimes when I'm doing the research, I do use the Excel. However, if I'm just doing an initial consultation, I'll have the client write down the numbers on the organ data sheet versus I do the Excel information afterwards if I'm reviewing their data because they've paid for that longer holistic consultation. When I'm doing a short consultation, I don't have the time to start setting all these things up because it does take a bit of time. Rather, to me, it's important that when I'm sitting with a client that we're getting to the information very quickly. So again, I'll reiterate that as we're going through the different steps. Now, what I wanted to show you, and there is also a way that through the Start Program feature, we can actually have our spreadsheet as a one-step button versus you have to go out of the Biopulsar program and open up your spreadsheet format. You can actually download it through the Biopulsar program, which I have done. And I actually did it before you because I show this feature all the time. I don't actually activate it. Today I activated it so you can actually see it, but it's super easy to do. And on page 30 of your blue technical manual, it actually goes into steps on how to do that. And if you have any questions, you can always call me and then I can take you through it a little bit slower, but as well, this video will also be a nice reference for you. Now, on the final page, what I wanted to do was show you how I tabulate the information. So by tabulating the information, we then can access the different biofeedback that we're doing. And when you're doing your Biopulsar correspondence course, in there, there's an excess of over 20 assignments that you're going to complete. Why? Well, I can tell you when I first started with the Biopulsar, I experimented in all kinds of ways. I was so excited with the system. I wanted to understand my energy dynamics and how my energy would flow or change or shift or, strengthen or weaken based on different things that I did. So when I got the Biopulsar, of course, I took it home and I went on there first thing in the morning and I looked at my energy when I woke up because I wanted to see, okay, I'm a little bit slow to get going in the morning. I'm still in that, haze, that dreamlike state, and what that reflected versus as my day got going, what did my energy look like? And it was fascinating to me because I learned there was certain ebbs and flows of my energy during the day. Absolutely. I could see that I was, more in the indigo in my brain when I woke up, and my energy dynamics actually were more balanced because when you're sleeping, it's more like a meditative state. And so there was a lot more green. And as my day progressed, I saw that different things started happening to my energy, maybe because, I'd have a coffee in the morning, or maybe I skipped breakfast. So I saw that there was things that interfered with my energy or affected my energy. So then I started monitoring things like my sleep habits, you know, on a day that I poorly slept versus when I had a good night's sleep. I was doing that comparison all against my original baseline reading. I was always comparing it against that. Now, every day it's a new baseline that you're doing, but when you start monitoring your energy over time, then you can see the fluctuations of different things. And this is what sold me on the Biopulsar, is seeing my weakest organ show up as my weakest organ every day. And for those of you who have heard my story, I'm just going to quickly repeat a few things. When I was 5 years old, I fell on the ice, or actually I was pushed on the ice, and I smashed my 2 front teeth. After that, I had several mouth surgeries because they had to repair the damage. And when I was 13 years old, what happened was, because of the damage to the front of my teeth shifted. And so what ended up happening is my eye tooth didn't come out because of the shift in my mouth. So I had to wear braces. They did another surgery where they hooked up my eye tooth, and they literally had to straighten it out and pull it out through my gum, which took a period of a year. Also during that time, you know, as a child, you start getting mercury fillings. And I think what happened, there was all this, you know, emotional trauma as well as physical trauma that started happening, that fast forward, when I first started going on the Biopulsar, when I was in my, I think I was about 37 when I started working with the Biopulsar. I started seeing the damage of all the past 30 years now unfold on the Biopulsar. So when I looked at my mouth was a very toxic black. And that was illustrating to me the mercury poisoning and the damage that I had suffered in regards to impact. Oh yeah, and I had car accidents and a few other things that happened on that emotional level. At age around 5 or 6, my parents stopped getting along. At age 13, they were actually talking about divorce. And then at age 13, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so therefore there was all this energy congestion in my mouth because I didn't talk to anybody about my emotions. So when I saw this on the Biopulsar and I saw the level of toxicity, I was determined to change it. So I went through trying all kinds of things to shift the energy. I was doing essences and oils and specific massage, lymph drainage, vitamins, different types of nutrition. I was doing actually radical lymph drainage, and I got all the mercury taken out of my mouth, did major detoxes. I did a 10-day fast. You name it, I did it because I was so determined to clear up that energy. And thankfully, I had the Biopulsar to actually show these shifts, whether they were minimal or whether they were grandiose. And I could see over a period of time that blackness started to dissipate and it started going to a neutral gray. And that excited me. Even though it was gray, I was excited that the toxicity was no longer there. And that made me understand also what we see when we see a level of illness in the physical body. We will see it in dark, dirty colors. And so I started using the Biopulsar to test everything in my life, from, you know, washing the kitchen floor to, you know, everything that I was consuming. I was doing before and afters. And this is part of what I wanted to show you today, is how extraordinary the Biopulsar is, because how many devices actually show you in a linear format the health of your organs and the variables of biofeedback, to the degree of every single organ and gland in your body. Most systems do not do this. They'll only do sections of your body, and a lot of them don't even connect it to the physical body. So you're relying on hypothetical data. With the Biopulsar, we can see everything in detail. And this is why when I show you this information here of the Biopulsar scan, you can see, for example, in this study, the cerebellum was a little bit hyper, and doing cell salts over a 2-week period stabilized it to just be in a stronger optimal level. Here, the cerebrum was at 0.35, and you can see over a period of time that the energy rose, and it actually rose quite quickly within a couple days. When something is conducive to your energy, you'll automatically see a shift. However, does it stick? That's the next question. Because one of the things that I learned is if I didn't do a protocol long enough, that often, as soon as I stopped, my energy reverted back to the way it was. And the way I look at it, let's just say, for example, you have a poor diet. It's ludicrous to say that one energy fluctuation is going to result in a permanent change. A lot of instruments that are out there are radionic in nature, meaning they send a frequency into the body. But how can the body hold the energy if you're not changing your diet, if you're constantly polluting your energy with a poor lifestyle choices? And if the emotional stress is still there, or the mental stress, or the spiritual stress, as well as the physical stress, we can't assume that just by interjecting an energy frequency in the body, that the body is going to respond permanently to that. And that's what I learned, is that as fast as I did a treatment, whether it was a chiropractic adjustment or some sort of treatment, that I could see my energy going back to the state that it previously was, because emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, I had not addressed the issue. And this is, to me, the most important factor, is that we have to look at things holistically. We can't just look at the physicality. We have to look at the emotions, the thoughts that are behind it, and the spiritual connection. And through the color language, we have that capability of doing that. There's no other system that shows you that biophotonic state, that cellular state of an organ that marries up to the emotional, mental, or spiritual cause. And this is one of the things that I love to share. And so when you get the Biopulsar, of course, you're privy to all this information in regards to body language and the different color perspectives that we can analyze that. And I was expressing to someone yesterday that the aura shows us everything, not just physically. It shows us everything that's hidden. It shows us our thoughts, our deepest, darkest thoughts. We can see depression. We can see negativity. And again, when you do the biofeedback, you can do things as simple as, start with a positive thought. See how your energy flows when you resonate that positive frequency versus having a negative thought. And in fact, I did this with dozens and dozens of people, where I had them think something positive, then I had them think something negative. And it was amazing to see all of a sudden their aura colors turn darker. But not only that, I also did a further exercise where once they had that negative thought, after I had them try to think that positive thought again. And it was hard for the body to go back into that positivity. Now, when they were in a neutral state and to think on a positive level, you could see everything brighten up. But once that negative thought came in, it was really hard to, or harder, I should say, to convert that negative thought back into positivity. That took more effort. And this is why when people are down in the dumps, it's harder to you can't just say to somebody, okay, be happy. It's not going to happen. There's stages. And this is why when we work with vibrational medicine and the different color vibratory tools, we can assist them to get back to that happy state. So there's certain colors that will relate to that more. But more importantly, when we look at the colors of the brain, we can then get into the consciousness of the person and the unconsciousness and the thought programming, and then teach them ways that they can shift that vibration. So here in this case, we can see that with the cerebrum, that here initially the baseline was 0.35, and just using a cell salt, because if there's a lot of gray in the brain, that's indicating that the synapses aren't connecting in the brain anymore. That's a precursor to things like stroke. So we have to be aware of these things, that if we see a lot of gray in the brain, we have to get the hydration back, and we have to use the things that are going to help be that conduit. So I like to work with cell salts because that will reactivate the connection of the cells and assist with the body to get the water into the cells. So this way we can see that this cell salt over time had an enormous result, because obviously we could see it going from that 0.35 to the average being 3.42. So again, that's amazing that when we put people on a protocol of nutrition or cell salts or aromatherapy or whatever it is, that we can actually monitor their progress. And this was over a 2-week period. Now, of course, when you're working with clients, it's a longer term commitment. I tell everyone, I understood it took me years to get to that point of understanding of what was going on in my throat chakra. It didn't all happen overnight. I had epiphanies, and, I had to reprogram my brain to have different thoughts, and that took consciousness. But again, thankfully, I had the Biopulsar that I could constantly see what was working and kept going towards the end result of what I wanted. And so my throat chakra, it took several months to get it from a weakened state of half of what it was to a normal, healthy state. And again, this is the importance of what we need to convey to people, that it can take a little bit of time and what I call elbow grease, because again, I do believe in miracles, but sometimes it just takes hard work. Okay. Now, when I'm doing biofeedback, I'm studying things from different perspectives. So I put things into colors, so that way I can see more precisely what is responding. So we can see here, everything in the yellow is indicating where we see more of the extreme results. So for example, we can see that the dehydration, because as you get to understand the Biopulsar, anything under the 1 value will tend to show up in gray. And gray means that lack of electrolyte activity. So again, when we see a lot of number values under 1, we know that there's an issue of dehydration, that lack of conductivity. Now, we can also go a little bit further, and one of the charts that I created is a medical chart that lists all the different possibilities of gray, because sometimes gray could be resultant of scar tissue. It can be resultant of radiation burns, chemotherapy, also toxic overloads, mercury poisoning and things like that. So again, why is the gray showing up? Why is there that dehydration? And that can take a lot of time to get to the answers. I had one gentleman that I was doing an assessment, and he had this body rash. And because I do work very much intuitively, I said to him, there's something that's been toxic in your life that's creating this skin rash. And he said, I have a very clean diet. And I went, no, this is going back probably about 15 years ago. And I was doing a couples counseling, and the wife went, that's when you were working at that plastic factory. And he actually told me that when he worked in this plastic factory, he broke out in the skin condition at that time because they were inhaling these airborne plastic particles that were probably coming out through, the different pores or the different holes that he had in his body. And the pores, the skin, is one way that the body eliminates toxins. So here he was now at a later stage in his life where he was having this skin condition again because the body was trying to eliminate the toxins. And probably because he was improving his diet and because he was doing different detox programs, that was the catalyst that was bringing out these hidden and stored toxins. So again, sometimes we have to probe and ask questions. What have you done as a profession, to find out, okay, what's the history of this person, and again, there can be a lot of conclusions that we can come to over time, but we have to ask a lot of questions. And I do have a daily observation sheet that all Biopulsar owners receive. So this way they have a variety of questions to start probing as to what some of the possibilities are. Okay, so we can see here that there was 3 parts of the brain that were affected by dehydration. And after 2 weeks of the tri-salts, we can see that there was great improvement from 30 to 57%. So when, again, we do a baseline average, we can start seeing things. Now, I do have the pictures that go with this, and I actually illustrated that on the front page just to show you. And I use this as a reflection of a lot of things, but you can see that the first picture with all that gray showing up is illustrating that dehydration. And we can also see through the yellow colors and the distorted colors that there is toxicity in the body. And the cell salts were something that I initially work a lot with clients, and I do radical therapy treatments. I get people bathing in the salts, drinking salt water, and as well taking minerals as well as cell salts and, all these different things. And with this person, because they were so dehydrated, the water was going right through them because there was nothing that the water was adhering to. And so they were going to the bathroom as fast as they drank water. And of course, they were feeling drained of energy. And in fact, this woman told me, she was very young, in her early 20s. And I asked her, how do you feel? And she said, I feel like a 90-year-old trapped in a 20-year-old body. So again, you can imagine how people feel. And people will feel dehydration in a variety of ways. They could feel mental fatigue, just where their mind power isn't as sharp, where maybe simple tasks like remembering where they put something, that could affect the brain, the memory, dehydration. Also to, during the day, just getting fatigued, to, obviously just feeling like you can't even get out of bed in the morning. So with this young woman, obviously dehydration was affecting her. She wasn't able to absorb her nutrition. And so therefore it was a catch-22. We had to get the cells reconnected. Now, after taking the tri-salts for 2 weeks, look at how much better her aura is. And in fact, I had her take a couple of tri-salts, and as we were conversing, I put her hand on the system 20 minutes later, and there was already a lot of reconnect. So again, we can see these things instantaneously, sometimes on a vibratory level, and sometimes more dramatically with the colors of the aura. But in this case, you can see how quick the response was within a short period of time. Okay. So just going back to the things that I look at, this leads me to have a lot of conversations with people, because when I see that the person is so dehydrated, then right away I know that their brain power isn't so strong, because we're seeing at least 3 parts of the brain being strongly affected. We can also see that there's a lot of gray that's showing up in the neck and shoulder region, which is blocking the lymph system. And, again, we have to understand that when our lymph system is sluggish, then it's not going to be at its optimal level to help carry out the impurities that are in our body's waterwork system and blood system. We need our lymph system to help chelate the toxins. And we can even see here that the esophagus and the lungs were weak. And so again, that's illustrating that this person, wasn't able to fully breathe deeply because of the dehydration. And here we have the validation in the small intestine that the person wasn't absorbing their nutrition, because if they were, then we would see that the small intestine would be happy and healthy with vibrant greens and number values in the range between 5 and 7. 6 and 7 on an optimal level, and 5 to 6 just in the normal state. And I'll just quickly run through the numbers to remind everyone, when we're looking at the numbers, that is giving us the state of the organ health. So when we're seeing number values between 0 and 1, that is energy depletion. Between 1 and 2, also energy depletion, but obviously not as extreme as between 0 and 1. And when we're looking at the number values of 2 to 3, again, energy depletion, but not as serious as anything that's below 1. And when we look at between 4 and 5, that is the low side of normal, meaning that organ, that part of the brain, whatever area of the body it is able to function, but it's at the low side. And it's sort of like there's not enough gas that if you would use, for example, your brain too much, you would experience mental fatigue very quickly. Similarly, in the body, if the organ is 4 to 5 and that organ is stressed out because maybe something that you ate or did, then all of a sudden that 4 to 5 value can quickly drop into 3 to 4 or the 2 to 3 range. Now, when we see the organ between 5 and 6, that is a stronger state of harmony, which would indicate the normal range. And between 6 and 7, with the number value 6.50 being the optimal state. That's what we're looking at every organ and gland to be at. Now, most people will be in the range between 4 and 7, with some areas being a little bit weaker and a little bit stronger. However, the more you work on your energy, the more it's going to create balance. Okay. Now, when we see number values over 7, we're starting to go into hyperactivity. So between 7 and 8 is slight hyperactivity versus between 8 and 9 is more of an extreme hyperactivity. And when we get over the 9 value towards the number 10, which is the maximum, that is a very extreme state of hyperactivity, which could also lead to an energetic jam. So again, we want to see the number of values at the very least at 5 and upwards to that 6.5 range being optimal, and even slightly hyperactive is still within the acceptable range. Okay. So as we're analyzing every organ and gland, we can make deductions. And when you get the Biopulsar, there's all kinds of support materials. So in this case, for example, we're seeing that the rectum is at 0.39. Now, again, as you do your own research with the system, or as you're working with clients and you see these things, you have to start asking questions. You have to start probing. So if we see that the rectum is below 1, that could illustrate that the bowel movements aren't regular. And this is where we have to ask some questions in regards to what's going on. Often it could be constipation, and in some cases, even diarrhea. Now, if the person is saying that they don't have either of those situations, you could go into more of a dialogue as to what their bowel movements look like. So again, that gives you a bit of an understanding as to what you might be seeing in regards to that. Now, here also, we're seeing the spine at 0.39. So that is illustrating that the energy flow through the spine is weak. And this is quite common that we see the spine weak. And then, of course, if we see other areas of the root chakra being weak, and in this case, we can see that, then we know that the overall vitality is weak. Because even looking at the adrenal glands, it's at 2.90, half of what it should be. So that's illustrating that the adrenals are fatigued. Well, if the adrenals are fatigued, people won't have that natural get up and go power. They're going to be a little bit stalled in their energy. They're not going to be feeling so vital. And when the adrenals are fatigued, that is adrenal burnout. And so what can we do about that? Well, obviously, we can work on that vibratory level, get that red energy going stronger, and that connection to the red energy. Now, because if we're looking at the energy flow, we do know that the adrenals are so important to the rest of the endocrine system, because the adrenals are our ability to fight. And this is a daily fight, waking up in the morning and being able to face your day, taking on all the responsibilities of your day. Okay, so we want to make sure that the root chakra, the adrenals, and the spine are healthy. Now, the spine is the cerebral fluid that's going up to the back of your head. And when the power in your spine is weak, again, you can imagine there's going to be a breakdown throughout your whole network. And the root chakra is your foundation. It's your base. It is your chi. It is your life force. So when we see that weak, then we know that the person's life force is also at a weakened state. Now, on this scan, we don't have the chakra flow, but as we go into more assessments, we can use different things that we see in the aura picture, in the graph analysis, in the number values, in the chakra flow, to build stronger pictures in regards to, the overall picture and, of course, the holistic health. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Biopulsar. Okay, now can everybody see my screen okay? Perfect. Okay. So what I did was I did a series of biofeedback, and I wanted to go through with you what some of the things that I do. So I have my Excel spreadsheet right here. So what I did was I got 2 baseline readings. So right away you could understand what it is, that we're seeing as the energy weakness. Now, this is where I start going into highlighting things. So you'll notice that my mouth all the way across is showing the same reading every single time. And I'll use my paint canvas, and I'm just going to paint that. So right away, I'm highlighting an area of weakness. And I do this, I go throughout the client's energy, and I look at, okay, what are we seeing as strengths and what are we seeing as weaknesses? So we can see here the first number value that's at point or below 1 is my mouth. Now, it's no longer that dark, dirty color that I mentioned, but because I broke my jaw, because I've had dental surgery, because I've had a lot of trauma in that area, and my jaw is crooked, that, it does reflect in an absence of energy quite consistently. Now, that could also be reflective of different things because I'm not a very emotional person when it comes to my expressions. If you ask me any question about what I know, I'm in there like Flint. I'll tell you everything that I know. I have verbal diarrhea when it comes to knowledge. So on that mental level, I'm very strong with my mouth. But where I fail is physically I have damage and emotionally I have damage. So when we look at some of these factors, we have to look at, okay, what are the quadrants telling us? So on a mouth level, I could be looking at the emotional component, the mental component, the spiritual component, as well as the physical. So in this case with myself, I know that other than on a mental level, I'm a little weaker on the spiritual. I don't always talk about my beliefs, but I'm getting better and better every day. Now I am more expressive when it comes to my belief system. Similarly, if you ask me questions, I will divulge, what's going on an emotional level, but I'm not the type of person that will bring that up first. And this is quite common that you will see people dysfunctional in the mouth area because, again, the way we communicate in society is not free flowing. We hold back our expression. So it is quite common that you will see people having gray in the mouth organ. Okay. And as I scroll down, I'm not seeing any other areas that are 0, which is great. So then I start working backwards. What do I see in between 1 and 2? If there's nothing in between 1 and 2, I'm looking at 2 to 3. Literally, I'm working back from 0 to 4 just to see where I need to focus, because normally what I do is I take 3 to 4 things that I want the client to work on. And even with myself, it's a reminder for me to constantly work in this area, and lately, because I've been moving, and in fact, I moved into my new apartment this weekend. So because I've had a lot of stressors in my life, I haven't been focusing on my areas of weakness. It's been more challenging the last couple of weeks, trying to maintain a good state of health with so much, so much stuff going on in my life. But nonetheless, this is a reminder to do the neck stretches, the jaw stretches, opening my mouth, closing it, moving my neck around so my neck is free flowing, using the oils and essences around this area, using my light therapy tools. So again, it's a time for me to go back to, looking at the things that, might be blocking my energy flow in the mouth. And this could be part of somebody's life learning lesson their whole life. This is something I've been working on a number of years because tapping into who I am is very important to me, but it's not like I sit there 24/7 and self-analyze. I do it when I have the opportunity to, and maybe there's still some things that are deeply rooted within me that I still need to work on. So again, maybe this will be somebody's life journey working on their area of weakness. I do believe God gives us challenges in our life, and those challenges are typically what we see as repeating patterns. And you've got to dissect it and look at it and analyze it. And this is what we're doing with our clients, is we're trying to get to the root cause. it may not be something that we can, totally dismiss or cure within a few days. But this is, again, when you understand that this is up to us to analyze our energy throughout our life cycle, then we have to understand that the Biopulsar is that phenomenal tool to help us do that. Now, in my baselines, as I mentioned, I took 2 baseline readings, so I had a strong analysis to show you this is, my energy. Now, in the D column here, I actually did 2 minutes of exercise. So I have one of my bouncy balls in my office. And so what I did was I just bounced on that ball, and I bounced high, and I was moving my arms around. I was, just literally increasing my energy flow, because I wanted to show you, what the variables are when we do exercise. So we can see that by doing exercise, that actually, helps get a little bit more oxygen to the brain. I'm actually analyzing this for the first time with you as well. So I'm just going to jump to anything that I see strongly noticeable. So we can see here that all of a sudden in my upper arm, that actually went stronger because I was moving my arm, and my esophagus went down slightly, and so did my lung. Also, my heart went down because I was pumping more oxygen, through my heart. So we can see that started coming down. Now, I only did 2 minutes of exercise. Imagine if I did 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of exercise. I'm sure we would have seen a greater degree of variables. And again, this is what I challenge you, because I've done all this, and I only did it for a couple minutes to illustrate that we would see some variables just by a couple minutes of exercise. But when you actually do 20 minutes of exercise, you're going to see it to a greater length as to what that exercise could do. And when people are overweight, or, they've had a lot of physical illnesses, we can do some simple things to encourage people, or we can encourage people to do simple things to raise their vibration so they can see that instant result. So just by having, one of these exercise balls in your office, having a client bounce on that ball for 2 minutes, you can show them some of the differences of how exercise will make improvements. And that exercise ball is something that anybody at any age can actually use and develop stronger red energy. Now look at this. This I thought was interesting, because I actually saw this where I could see my stomach actually came down. We can see that my stomach was 9 and 8.94. And when I did the exercise, it came down to 7.06. And not that I know all the answers to everything, but I do know that exercise will help stimulate the energy flow throughout our whole body. Okay, I didn't document the chakras. And what I could do is I can complete this, guys, and send it to you so you can see more, more things that shifted as I did different exercises. Now, in column E, I meditated for a couple minutes. And again, this was only a couple minutes. But what I loved was actually seeing my aura go more green. And that, again, is that instant visual perspective of before meditation and after meditation, how our energy flow can change quite drastically just by doing meditation. So again, when we go through the numbers, oh, okay, hold on. We may disregard that row. It looks the same as the previous one. So I might have accidentally copied and pasted the same number values in. So, but I can, again, I'll send out the number values so you can research this yourself and look at how the energy flow is different after the meditation. And then what I did was I started testing different nutrition. And the first nutrition that I did was a digestive support. And I saw some variables that were quite, not quite good, indicating, and if we just quickly go down to, for example, the neck, we can see that my neck dropped from in the 3-point range value to 0.35. So it dropped quite a bit when I tested this one nutrition. And to test nutrition, all we do is we keep our hand on the Biopulsar, And either we can take our measuring belt, and you get a wrist measuring belt, and we can put the product in the belt and wrap the belt around the hand, or we can hold the bottle to the thymus gland and see the reaction, or we can put the bottle or a tablet on the client's hand. And again, as soon as the bottle or the tablet is within the energy field, the body will respond to that. And so we could see that on that energy level, that my neck did not respond to that product. However, the second product that I tested was vitamin C, and we can see that my neck actually jumped much higher than all the readings previous. So, obviously vitamin C is very important to our stress level. So therefore, this is indicating to me that I need to up my dosage of vitamin C. I typically take 1 a day. However, because of the amount of stress I've been under these last few weeks, I know that, probably taking more vitamins would be more notable to me. So it's very easy to do research on the Biopulsar with anything. And what, I'm just going to illustrate here to you. That when you get the Biopulsar, you have a whole series of tests that you have to do. And you go through everything step by step. Yep, I thought I had it here. Oh, I may have left it in my office. But you're going to be doing things such as checking your energy before and after a night's sleep. Checking yourself after, you have eaten a meal. I also challenge you to deliberately dehydrate yourself, because I want you to see how lack of water consumption will affect your energy. So as you go through these different assignments, the task is that you're analyzing your energy from your baseline reading of the day and your baseline reading from your initial baseline assessment. And when you get the Biopulsar, that's the number one thing that you're doing, is you're starting your own baseline reading from the day that you got the Biopulsar, set it up and assessed yourself. And then that way you monitor yourself over time. Now, when I got the Biopulsar, this again is what I did, was I started exploring different things with my clients, because I understood that there was a lot of factors that were influencing people. So when somebody came in and I could see that they had negativity in the brain, and that negativity would show in muted colors, dark colors, grays in the brain, that all represents negativity in the brain. Because when the brain is positive, we're going to see vibrant colors. As well, we're going to see a lot of neutral colors. Sometimes we'll see higher frequency colors depending on the state of consciousness of the person, but that nonetheless, we're going to be seeing more neutral and vibrant hues. But when I would see somebody that had depressed thoughts, I would talk to them about what's going on in their life and how their energy is being affected by thoughts. So then I would take that baseline reading to show them, what their energy was like when they came in. And then I would have them think a positive thought. Now, that positive thought could be anything in regards to releasing what was going on at that time, or I would have people doing an affirmation, a positive affirmation. Sometimes I would actually even have them communicating with that part of the body. Or I would have them close their eyes and think of something positive. And then we could show how their thoughts affected their brain and their body, because just by having a positive thought, right away you're going to see how your body parts actually respond to that thought. And that is amazing. That is instant biofeedback to show people how positive and negative thoughts work. I had one Biopulsar owner that was hired to do research, and in her research studies, it had a lot to do with people listening to certain dialogue on a CD. And as they listened to the dialogue on the CD, the intention was to take them out of a negative thought programming. And in one case, it was attached to money. And it was people who were negative in regards to money and having challenges in their life in regards to money. And so the visualization or the information that was on the CD was to have people reformat their thought programming. Well, some people, you could see that their energy went to a more harmonious state. And other people, as they listened to the CD, their energy actually went down. It tanked, it looked worse. And it was because they didn't like the CD, what it was saying, because it didn't resonate with them. And that's really important to understand, that sometimes when we have negative programming, we have to understand our connection to that programming. Our experiences are going to be different than someone else. So we have to figure out how, how our visualizations or affirmations or other things are affected by us. Okay. So other things, looking at a variety of things as to what is causing the dysfunction in the body, use all these different biofeedback techniques. I do a lot where I test products right there and then with clients. I have them using oils and essences, and you'll notice I had all kinds of things behind me here because I actually, when I did the exercise, I also did some red tools because I wanted to show the effect of increasing the red energy. And again, I'll show you in more detail in the following report that I email you. And if I don't have your email, you'll have to send it to me in order to get this report. For a lot of you here, I've got your email, so don't worry, I'll be able to send you that. But if you didn't get an email from me this afternoon illustrating some of the sheets on it, or a link with the sheets on it, then I don't have your correct email address, and that's why you didn't get it. Also check your spam folder to make sure that you did receive it. Okay, so we are at the 1 hour mark. We covered a lot, and I hope that a lot of this made sense to you as to how I described things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open this up to dialogue. And if you have a question, please unmute yourself, and then I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Hi, Suzanne. Can you hear me? This is Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. Yes, I can hear you.
I'm going to jump right in here because I am just being introduced to this, other than my aunt doing some analysis with me in the past. So this was fascinating. Thank you so much for letting me join. My next question, my next step with you is, how can I get with you one-on-one to learn more of where I might start in this journey? Because I am in the process of opening up my own transformative health and wellness service business. So this would play a wonderful factor. I love it. I love everything you said. So please share with me how I can get in touch with you and how might we have that one-off, that not one-off, but first conversation.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, Kelly. And just give me a call at 1-800-225-1226, extension 511, and we can start the dialogue. I'll also make sure that I send you an email of the price list, so that way you're familiar with all the pricing. The Biopulsar is module.
Can you just repeat that phone number again one more time?
Sure. 1-800-225 1226, extension 511.
Thank you.
And the Biopulsar is module, meaning we build systems according to what your needs. We can start with a simpler system, and a lot of Biopulsar owners that have joined us here today started with a simpler system and then added some modules as they built their business. So because it's modular, it allows you to get started at a more affordable price. And then, as I mentioned, you can grow your system. And so it's just the matter of us having a conversation to find out what your needs are initially. Now, I also want to share with you, and some of my Biopulsar owners, please chime in and let everyone know, all the support that we provide here. But I've created a 200-page training manual, and the correspondence course also adds on another 100 to 200 pages of materials. So you get a lot of support. Plus, I have all kinds of client handouts that you'll be receiving, which will be checklists and different tools that you can use in your business. And if you go back on some of my videos, you'll see that I talk and introduce these different handouts. It's continual education. You know, people always think that, geez, you know, did I wake up and know all this about the Biopulsar day one? No, absolutely not. But what I did do was I actually, I always like to tell this story where my boss told me that I was going to be going into a health show with the Biopulsar, and I had only explored the Biopulsar for probably a week or so. And it's not like I was, you know, on it constantly. I would, you know, do a couple scans a day and that was it. And he said, well, you're going to be doing this health event and doing readings for people. And I just, you know, basically said, I'm not doing that. And he pulled the boss card where he said, no, you're going to be doing the show because you're the one that's going to be involved with this technology. So you have to be introducing it. So I went to the show, and during the course of a weekend, I did 50 readings, not knowing anything. There was no technical manual, no interpretation guide, no support materials whatsoever, just my knowledge of what I understood of metaphysics. And, you know, I started analyzing what I saw in the system, and I would just ask clients questions like, I'm seeing something in this area and it looks like it's in your neck and shoulder area. Do you have stress and tension there? And right away they would validate that. And then I would go in, well, it's great. This is telling me that, you know, you're in denial about your responsibilities, or maybe you have too many responsibilities that you don't know how to handle them anymore. You're at a loss. And I would just engage in these conversations, and I would talk about the colors in their brain and what that reflected in regards to their mood, you know, their well-being, and, you know, what it meant in the color language. And I just started having these conversations with people. So I didn't know everything to begin with. Now, when you get the Biopulsar, you get 20 years of my expertise in the training. And now on, you know, on YouTube, there's dozens of videos so you can explore how to read the aura, how to read the chakras, how to do a more detailed holistic examination. So all this is, you know, free to you to learn, you know, more about how you can work with the Biopulsar. And it's, you know, education as you go as well. So I'd like some of my Biopulsar owners to chime in and let Kelly know what they think.
Well, if you go through all of the text material, the course that Suzanne's talking about, and if you have a partner that you can work with, so you're comparing, you know,
Yes.
two different people, I think that's extremely, extremely valuable. And you do see as you go through the exercises, you do see them changing your numbers to the point that you realize that this really works.
Yeah.
And then when you start using it with people and asking questions, and I've been in sales all my life, so I ask a gazillion questions. I've just been trained to do that, train people to do that. But that's the biggest thing when you're actually dealing with clients, is to ask questions, listen to what they say, watch their body language, and intuition is a huge part of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And are you all in the United States, or are you in Canada? And
We're in Florida.
okay,
Oh, okay.
very good. Nice.
75 and sunny today.
United California,
Okay.
California.
I'm
Excellent.
from Red Deer, Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Oh,
Portugal,
Awesome.
Portugal. I'm in Portugal. A little bit.
Portugal. Wow.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Louisiana.
So
Ohio.
are there any regulations in the States in using this?
We sell it as a research tool, and only unless you're licensed to diagnose are you able to use it in that capacity. So again, it is a diagnostic device because it's very refined in its assessment. However, because I am not licensed to diagnose, I'm very careful with my verbiage. And if people ask me if I'm diagnosing, I let everyone know I am an energy lifestyle detective. I am looking at your energy, and I'm deducing, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically what you can do to make improvements. If somebody is concerned about their health, or if I'm concerned about something, I will refer them to a qualified medical practitioner. And I will let you know, I do see everything on the Biopulsar, so I can see when somebody's ill. And I know I have saved some lives because I've seen things that no doctor, no testing was able to pick up. I was able to pinpoint it, tell the client what to say to their doctor, get further testing, and serious causes were found. So, you know, to me, because I'm not diagnostic, I partner with other people who can do that. So again, in every state, every province, and every country around the world, there's different requirements. Because this is biofeedback, anybody can use it, but how you use it is based on your skills. Okay?
Thank you.
I'm from Ohio, and I did the same thing. I've sent people over to medical doctors, and I have testimonials for one woman that had breast cancer, and the doctor wasn't going to screen her for 2 years. So the same thing. I work out of a mental health facility, so I can stretch my boundaries a little bit when it comes to practice. But again, like Suzanne, I tell people I don't diagnose, treat, prescribe, or cure. And I'm on the call. I'm one of the owners that have had the system almost 21 years, and I still learn something from everybody else. So I enjoy these calls just to hear what people are saying and what Suzanne has to say, because she is still a wealth of knowledge for me.
Oh, I know.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you know, the other thing too is that when you have it set up and you have it towards the client, it's very self-empowering for the client to take accountability for their own interpretation as well, because the answers are all inside us. But when we have it right in front of us in color, and then we see in color, and then you can go in further with the numbers, it's very self-empowering, and it helps people that have had a tough journey with allopathic medicine, because they're uncertain, or they've been told that it's all in their head.
Yes.
So for that kind of empowering, it's very uplifting for everyone, and for the client to start to be accountable for their own health just by the simplest things.
Yes.
You know, just even when you start to put on say for instance, red, I'm doing a lot of red work because I need it myself, but just, but just doing the red just on a pulse point on their body, and they can see, wow, on the Biopulsar, they go, oh my God, look at the difference just so quickly.
Yeah.
That's
fantastic. What I love about it. It's like being a detective for themselves.
Suzanne, I have a question on how to get your hand on the plate.
Okay.
Whether it matters if your fingers are hanging over.
Yeah.
The points.
So just so you know, I did a video on this, and that should have been one of the videos that you just received, Donna, last week. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it.
No worries, because I love the questions that come up. There's nothing wrong with going over things over and over and over again.
Okay.
Now, this is the medium hand plate, and this is the larger one. Now, my hand will not fit on the large one. I miss too many sensors. Most importantly, you want to have all the sensors covered. And see this position here where it goes down the hand? I always wrap the hand around that it fits along that. Okay. Now, my fingers will extend over, but you got to remember the system is, there's so much behind the measuring hand plate that you don't see. No organ works independent of a network, and no organ works independent of not just the network, but meridians, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much behind it. So when we're putting the hand on there, even the template that we have that goes along with this, you'll see that the thyroid is illustrated in a couple of positions. So most importantly, you're covering all the sensors, and you just want the hand to be as centered as possible. Now, sometimes if you want to get a second reading to ensure the authenticity of the first one, you can slide the hand down a little bit or a little higher, depending, and take a second or third scan. I equate it to the fact that it's no different when you go for an x-ray. They tend to take 2 to 3 x-rays to really understand the situation. So it's the same thing. If you're doing more in-depth assessment, take 2 to 3 scans. Make sure that the data is accurate. Don't rely just on one. But one of the things you'll find, Donna, is over time, the more you actually start to correlate the client's data, even your own, for your own self-knowledge, you'll see that there are constants and there will be variables. The constant, you're going to be looking at the constants that are weak, because anything that's hyperactive could be just because maybe you ate, okay? Versus something that's lower, it's gotten lower over time. So that's where we have to look at the more seriousness. That's why I always talk about the number values between 0 and 1 as being the most important. And I address that over and over and over again in everything, because I want to make that a clear point. When the variables are slight, I'm not so worried about that, as long as they're within that normal range. And even on a hyperactive level, it could just be illustrative of the moment in time. But by the time you take 2 to 3 scans, you'll have concrete evidence of whatever area is weak. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when you were talking about the chart of what the gray means,
Yes.
can you send us that chart?
Well, it is the medical chart, and there is a fee for that, just so you know. Okay. There's some things that we have created to support you that we do charge a nominal fee for. So I'll send out my regular email of some of the things that are additional things that you can purchase. But a lot of this is also in your training manual. And one of the things I tell everyone, I wrote the manual and I still go back and refer to it, because when I reread it, I go, oh, well, that's brilliant. I totally forgot about that. So it will just keep reminding you of all these things. But I do trust that when you study the manual, what's most important is what will come to the forefront when you come across it in a reading. And remember, I had nothing to begin with. I just started remembering things. Oh, this person told me this, and I remember that. So I'm going to ask this person if they're in the same situation.
Right.
Okay. But you also have these great reference sheets in your material that you can refer to that will give you a lot of information.
Okay. So I did a scan on a lady. She's very young. And
Right.
she's went to naturopaths as well as her doctors. They can't figure out what's wrong. But she, on her extremity, the middle part of her arm to the middle part here before her shoulder, and the same on her legs, the middle part from the calf to about mid-thigh, were completely gray. And then the rest of the extremities had color. And she senses like a numbness in the gray area, and they can't figure out what's wrong. And I didn't know how to interpret that. Obviously there's a blockage where that gray area is.
Yeah.
But
so sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't know. I didn't understand.
Yeah. So to me, when I first look at gray, my first assumption will be dehydration. And dehydration can be caused by many things. And the way the body works is any area of the body that's weak becomes a dumping ground. And the weaknesses are that reflection of something mental, emotional, and spiritual that's disconnected. Okay. The physical body is the last part of our being that gets hit. And so therefore we have to look at the connection of those organs to her on that emotional, mental, and spiritual level. So that's the first thing you want to go into, because when we start looking at the dehydration, we have to understand what's connected to that. But the bottom line is you're going to start working, with minerals and salts and, different products that will help get the lymph system going, because all this area here, there's so many lymph glands that when they're congested, there is no energy flow. And so therefore it's almost like, when there's no energy going through, whether it's a vein or the lymph, the lymph gland, what happens is it starts to narrow or it starts to get blocked. So there's no energy dynamics. So lymph drainage would work. And, even with myself, I'm constantly pulling the energy down. I do a lot of, self-massage in that area. I teach people things, especially in this area, to slap their armpits during the day to raise the vibration or scratch in that area. You can do skin brushing. There's a lot of things that you can do. And as you start going through your studies, Nancy, then you'll see a lot more correlation to what you're doing, because just by slapping the armpit or scratching the armpit or doing a skin brushing, you will see the energy move. And again, we've got to get people doing these things because, as Pauline said, this is something that can empower people when they see it for themselves. And then in your office, they just, like I said, scratch or slap their armpit region and you see the energy move. They're going to be going, oh my goodness, I can do this? Absolutely. We want to empower people to do the things that are going to help shift their energy. So part of, the what we're doing here today is, having this conversation about the different things that we can do. But there is a vast amount of things. And in my material, I share a lot of this.
Okay, yeah. I've seen the part about the armpits and I was doing that the other day.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Nancy.
Suzanne.
Yes.
One thing that I've learned, I work with a psychotherapist.
Yes.
And one thing that I've learned is that very often when you can get the physicians interested, that's a double whammy for the patient, for the client, because then according to the psychotherapist, there were a lot of diagnoses and a lot of issues that she would not have picked up on had she not had the Biopulsar. And another thing, may I mention, I don't know how important it is. I don't remember reading about it, but I've learned to ask all of my clients to please remove all jewelry before they do the Biopulsar.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Carolyn, because these are important things to remember. Absolutely. And on that psychotherapy level, the more readings that you do, then the more you'll see different things. I can see when people have attempted suicide in the aura. And this is more advanced, and I'm going to be writing more about this. I have to dig through my photos too to be able to pull out the examples of what I've seen. But people are quite surprised when, you ask them in a very delicate way, have you had suicidal tendencies? Everything is shown in the aura. There's nothing. And this again makes our system so different, because on a physical level, you can't get that diagnosis. But through the color language, I think everybody here who's got a Biopulsar that's online today will attest to the fact the emotions are stored in the colors. When we see the colors, we know the emotional attachment.
With experience, when you start asking questions, I think it was just before the holidays. I had a mother and two daughters that I did, one right after the other. But the one daughter, I said to her, she had attempted suicide. I said, so what brought you to the point? She didn't tell me this.
Yeah.
But I looked at the reading and I said, so tell me what brought you to the point of considering suicide. When you say that to a client and they haven't told you that, it's like all of a sudden they're wide open and they tell you things that, Carolyn was saying, the psychotherapist all of a sudden finds out way more because they tell you things that they're coming to you for help, but they think they can hide things and you can still help them, which you can't. Yeah. But when they can't hide from the colors.
What does that look like?
Well, we see all kinds of things, right? Okay, actually, I'll let you answer that, Nancy.
I don't remember specifically what it looked like. It was a combination of things. So it was a combination of what was going on in her brain and where the depression was. Like I said, it's a lot of intuition. I'd have to go back and look at it to tell you exactly what sparked me to say that.
Okay, I'll kind of elaborate a bit more on that. But when I see gray in the spine, that's illustrating a disconnect from the life force. It's not the gray I'm looking for. It's the color of the gray. It's when the gray is a darker gray, and you'll see it, then that is the disconnect from life, that people are not enjoying life anymore.
She had a very, very dark, like a charcoal gray at the back of her brain,
yeah,
in her neck and down her spine. So
yeah.
I knew there was a bad disconnect there with that gray.
Yeah. And the cerebellum stores past thoughts and traumas. That's where we'll see PSTD. So I had a young man that had this very dark darkness in his cerebellum. And I said to him, it looks like you're suffering from PSTD. And he said, well, I just came back from the war. And he said, I was in an elite squad, and the things that I did, I can't even repeat to you. He said, I'm very traumatized from my whole experience there.
So would that also apply to not only people that tried to commit suicide, but as well, say, a drug overdose?
Absolutely. And again, this is where, use your intuition, but you can always start by asking questions very generically. It looks like there's a disconnect to your life force. Is there something going on in your life that is causing you some thoughts about maybe not wanting to be here? It's the same thing. I had one woman who was in her 70s where her spine was gray, but her whole body actually illustrated a lot of gray. And I said to her, I think you're already checking out. And, she basically wasn't taking responsibility for her life anymore. She was bedridden by choice. Her children were trying to get her out of the bed because she was fully capable of getting out of the bed. But nonetheless, she just sort of resigned herself. And, that can happen. So you have to just be able to, address it in some way that opens up that conversation to find out more about this. Like this other woman that I saw the suicide. I just, basically said, it looks like you've recently tried to commit suicide. And I normally wouldn't say that as bluntly, but I just felt in her case I could. So sometimes I can be very direct, and sometimes I can decode a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne, I have a question about how do you know if it's way back in the past or present?
Yeah, sometimes it's where it is in the body, and sometimes it's my intuition. There's a lot of things we actually can do with the Biopulsar. And again, I need to be writing about these things because some of these topics are not something I can answer in 1 minute or less. For example, and I don't know, Nishanto, when you were here, did we do past life stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so you can do past life regression using the Biopulsar. You can also go into the birthing experience. We can see astral flyers. We can see the near-death experiences. There's a lot of things that we can see on the Biopulsar, but I need to spend more time, and because most of my training, when people come here, I can cover this. And I was just thinking, I know Frank's on here. Frank, are you still here? Oh, he may have. Frank, where are you? He may have left, but he was on earlier. In the class that he was at, I was talking about astral flyers, and there was one guy in the group, not Frank, but Henry. And I showed Henry's photo because when you come here, everybody gets their scan, their pictures are out in front of them. So that way I can refer to everybody's pictures as we're going through the training. And I held up Henry's picture and I said, this is a perfect picture of an astral flyer. And he just, you can see his eyes come out and he went, I astral fly every night. And it was just priceless. Because when you actually say these things to people, because you can see it in their aura map, I'll tell you, it's that accurate when it comes to all kinds of metaphysical things that, we read about in books, but now we can actually see it in the photo.
I used to see that, Suzanne. Suzanne. I used to have that in dreams, and it was in a bad time in my life. And I dreamed of flying, and I'd fly out and fly. And then studying Freud says that's a sign you need to get out of a certain area, that you're trying to fly away. You're trying to get out of that area.
Interesting.
Or situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if you ever get that. I was going to say, if you ever get that feeling again, Dr. Emmett, make sure you go on the Biopulsar right away and see.
I don't get it anymore. I married the right one.
She grounds you. Wonderful.
That was before me.
Suzanne, way back when Wim Borsboom was here,
yeah,
showed me how to detect things that happened in the past. And it had to do with the blurps in the lines. Do you remember that?
I sure do.
Okay.
And yeah, and again, I want to go back to some of this stuff, but I want to have the evidence to show you, because it's hard to talk about if you don't have the pictures to show.
Right.
But Wim got into also assessing the cracks and everything that we can see in the aura picture. But it was in one of my classes where I got into the pre-birth, and Wim was actually witness in that class. And so he learned how to do it. And then I think he developed other skill sets based on that. It was, I love watching people develop with the system, because you guys can teach me things that either one, I have never experienced, or two, I've forgotten about. And whenever you get a really cool picture to share, please send it to me, because then I can put it in a portfolio. Like I have dozens of people who astral fly, and I have a couple near-death experiences, but I'd like to actually have more so we can really make it more evidence-based.
Hi, I have a more basic question. I think it's about the hand plate again.
Sure.
Can you hear me? Yes. I'm working for Donna. We're up here in Nova Scotia, and we just got our machine today. We're all excited. We did try, just a few of us using the hand plate, and one person couldn't be read easily because I think their hand was dry. Where we are, we have a lot of like COVID procedures. We have to use hand sanitizers. Some people are using hand creams. Some people are using their own oils and stuff on their hands. Is that going to affect the reading on, like when you're touching the plate? Do they have to wash their hands first, or what do you have them do?
Yeah, I want people to do nothing before I see them, because then we can manipulate the reading somewhat, and I don't want to manipulate it. I have some owners that say, please drink a glass of water before you come. But again, I want to see if somebody's dehydrated naturally, because if you're not drinking enough, I want it to show up. Versus you coming to see me and you've drank the water, you put lotion on your hand, then I'm not going to see that there's the dryness. And it's really important to see these things, because when it comes to internal dryness, and this is a problem, 70 to 80% of people are dehydrated. That's a fact, and so therefore, when we manipulate the reading, and I do understand with COVID, we're taking all these safety measures. Now, because of that, then you have to make a decision. And that decision is one, don't have them clean their hand before they put it on the hand plate. You can clean the hand plate simply afterwards, okay? So you can clean it after they've left, but you want to see what their scan is before you put anything on there. Now, if they're using a lot of hand sanitizers, that will dry out their hand. So what you're going to do then is either use the contact gel that comes in your carrying case, which I don't use because it is chemical. I try to be chemical free in my life, so I do not use it. But because of the fact this is the typical electrogel that's used in hospitals, it is a hospital grade electrogel. However, I use either a floral water hydrosol, like, tea tree, and because that's a natural disinfectant anyways. And all you have to do, and just to sort of show you, because I want to make sure you guys understand, when you're putting a spray on the hand, only do 1 or 2 mists at the most. That one mist I can actually see is quite a bit of liquid. Then get the client to rub their hands together for at least 10 seconds, no less than that, because you don't want any water on the hand, and sometimes water will fall into the pockets. Then when they put their hand on, you've created that stronger electromagnetic energy, because now water with rubbing your hands together, you're actually creating electricity. Okay, you're going to get a stronger reading. Then what you need to do is make sure you keep their hand on for no less than 30 seconds, ideally 1 minute or longer. because then you're going to see the oil or the cream slightly evaporate, or the water slightly evaporate. And so you're going to start seeing more of the norm of how dehydrated they are, but you'll also see that that it won't be as gray, which is, you know, a nice visual for the client, because of course, if they put their hand on and all you see is a gray aura, that's a little shocking for some. So then I let people know you're dehydrated. So let's put the contact, you know, water on your hand. Let's retake the scan. And then I go back to the fact that they're dehydrated. Now, how do you know if they're dehydrated if it's only the hand? Look at their lips, see if their lips are chapped. Look at if they're sucking for water in their mouth. Like I've just talked for 1 hour, so I can tell my mouth is dehydrated. So they almost pucker their mouth. That's a sign of dehydration. Look at their skin. Look if there's any dryness on their face, their hands. Another test is by raising the skin on the hand, and how fast it bounces back illustrates their level of hydration. Okay, so my bounce is fairly quick, so I'm not ultra dehydrated. But people who are dehydrated, honestly, that portion of their skin will linger before it falls down. Okay, so there's different things you could do. Also, another question I ask people is, when you drink a glass of water, do you find you have to go to the bathroom within a half hour? Because if they have to go to the bathroom within a half hour, they're dehydrated. Because when you drink water, your cells should be saturated with the water consumption. But when your cells are dehydrated, it's like a shell is surrounding the cell. And how do you get the water in? Okay.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Another factor is that the body can only utilize about 3 to 4 ounces every half hour. So drinking a whole glass of water, you can only use 3 to 4 ounces. The rest you're going to have to go urinate out. So it's a small amount throughout the day to get your volume. And I never go over 90 ounces on individuals. Then you start really washing the salts out and dehydrating them even more.
Yeah. See, and that's, I think, what sometimes people do is that when they're so thirsty, they're drinking glasses of water, and that's not going to resolve the problem. I remember reading an article where somebody died and they were dehydrated, and everybody was in shock because the guy actually drank like 4 to 5 liters a day. That's a lot of water. That's over a gallon.
Suzanne, I want to go back to the question about the antibiotic.
Yes.
I found when antibiotic lotions came out, that it does turn most people's aura a shade of yellow, and so I discontinued it. So people might be aware of that chemical in the antibiotic lotions and soaps and stuff like that will color. And I have quite a few hundreds of people that I did that on. So I have a pretty good basis from which that information comes from. And so I discontinued. So people that are using antibiotics or anything, lotions or soap, before they apply their hands on the aura or the Biopulsar, might find that their aura is being tainted by that chemical information.
Well, and yellow is the toxins, which would make perfect sense. So thanks for sharing that, Diana. Also, too, what a lot of people don't realize is when you're using all these chemical disinfectants, it's actually stripping the natural oils off your hand that actually are protecting you. And when you strip those natural oils on, then the bacteria and the virus can actually get lodged in the dryness of your skin. And it's worse than that. And I talked to a woman who worked in the emergency ward, and that was her biggest complaint, is that they were required to use disinfectant on their hand, and it was causing more problems than solving a solution.
Now, did she mean antibiotic lotions and soaps or antibacterial?
Antibacterial.
Okay. So in regards to that on the hands, going back to the hand plate, you had a left hand plate, I have a right one. Does that make a difference in the aura reading as opposed to past and future? And no?
No. Of course, when you're using a right hand plate, you're measuring the right brain and the left side of the body. And when you're using a left hand plate, you're measuring the left brain and the right side of the body. There will be variables if you ever do right brain, left brain diagnosis. But what I tell everyone, there's so much information you get from the aura, from the organ vitality. Even if you had the second opposing hand plate, that's a lot of data to decipher, and you don't have the time. I only recommend it to hospitals that are doing extreme detailed diagnosis, or to people who will actually, in what they're doing, that could be very important. But again, there are some other things that I look at, because, for example, even if we're measuring the left brain, which governs, you know, your mental abilities, and I'm seeing a lot of right brain colors, or pardon me, a lot of emotional colors, because colors do have a masculine or feminine influence. They have a connection to extroverted versus introverted energies, physical versus spiritual. There's so many dynamics of the colors that you learn when you get the Biopulsar, which again is part of your training. And as well, we will be coming out with more advanced studies as my whole point of these videos is to get as much information out there as possible, and then start to build on the information.
So the right hand plate analyzes the right brain and the left side of the body.
Correct. And vice versa. However, I whatever hand plate I have in front of me, that's the one I work at on, and I get all the answers that I need.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something, Susan.
Yes.
I'm doing working with the root chakra and with dehydration. I just tried a couple of things, and I just thought it'd be really beneficial to share this, because I'm a great advocate for the Schulzler tissue salts.
Yes.
And I found from working with the NatMer, because that really balances your fluid, since I've been working with that, my colours of the grey is just, it's just dissipating.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
now
it's holding it on a cellular level better now.
Absolutely. Now, is Dr. Gates on? Dr. Gates, are you on today? Okay, she might not be there. I think she signed up, but maybe she joined and left early. Dr. Gates has been using our Andes salts and getting also very good results. She's getting people to make the brine and sip the brine throughout the day. So similar salts, and the Andes salts have, I think, over 100 of our essential minerals in it. So whatever solutions you find, I write a lot about salt therapy because I think it's huge. You know, even for people who have a lot of stress in the neck and shoulder area, I get them doing a salt brine, putting a scarf in it, wrapping the scarf around their neck, and either wearing it all day or sleeping with the salt scarf on them, because wherever the weakest point is in the body, we need to do whatever we can to fix it.
Well, it's interesting to say that, because the Schulzler is homeopathic. It's not working on the same level as it is. I'd be really interested to try it. Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. I think we're done today now. I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us, and in 2 more Thursdays, or pardon me, the first Thursday of every month, I'm going to be teaching a concept of color, and then the 3rd Thursday of every month, I'll be doing Biopulsar. For anybody who's got the Biopulsar, you're going to benefit from all of them. And the Biopulsar classes are typically closed to Biopulsar owners. I did open this one to a few people. So thanks for joining. Kelly will talk later. Or anybody else who joined us today that's interested in learning more about the technology, please give me a call at 1-800-225-1226, extension 511. Or send me an email, Suzanne@colorenergy.com, and that's Suzanne, SUSANNE, and color is with a U, COLOURENERGY.com. So Suzanne@colorenergy.com. Otherwise, we will see you guys in either 2 weeks or 4 weeks. And yeah, keep on shining your bright light and be colorful.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne.
Bye for now.
God bless everyone.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.